Hey guys, ever wondered what you'll get if you cross Inspector Clouseau with RoboCop? Well, if you ever have, the answer is Inspector Gadget, a bumbling, dim-witted cyborg cop who is accompanied with an endless supply of gadgets, of which either get him out of trouble or into trouble. Teamed up with his niece Penny and Dog Brain as his sidekicks, Inspector Gadget is on a never-ending quest to defeat the evil organisation known as MAD, whose evil, faceless leader Dr. Claw will stop at nothing to defeat Inspector Gadget once and for all. But despite his innocent yet dim-witted nature, Inspector Gadget always seems to save the day and defeat evil. Mainly due to Penny and Brain though. I loved this show as a kid and couldn't get enough of it. So because of that, go Gadget Top 10 Countdown, as we look into 10 things that you didn't know about Inspector Gadget. So let's look into these 10 facts that'll make you go wowzers. Number 10. Inspector Gadget launched the Deek Entertainment Corporation. In the late 80s and early 90s, the Deek Company produced a lot of popular animated cartoon series, including fan favourite The Real Ghostbusters, along with the Super Mario Bros. Super Show, Cops, Rainbow Bright, The Chipmunks, Captain Planet, and G.I. Joe, to name but just a few. People probably most remember Deek for its weird logo sequence, in which some kid says the word Deek in his sleep. Deek. However, it all started with Inspector Gadget. The American Deek Company was formed in 1982 from its former French variant, and Inspector Gadget was Deek's first syndicated series, which was so popular it put Deek on the map, with it first being broadcast in 1983, with its original run lasting till 1986, with many other medias and spin-offs since then. Basically, Inspector Gadget was made to make the company successful with American audiences, and well, it did. Number 9. The voice behind Inspector Gadget. Those who watch Inspector Gadget may think that his voice sounds familiar and like another bumbling, stumbling agent, as the part of Inspector Gadget was voiced by Don Adams, who is most well known for his role as Maxwell Smart in the 1960s hit spy spoof TV series Get Smart. And not only does Inspector Gadget's voice sound a little bit like Adams Maxwell Smart's voice, but it sounds exactly the same. In fact, when I was a kid, I always used to imagine that Gadget was smart in the future, and they just added robotic parts to him. But regardless, the voice that Adams provides really made the character come to life and give him flair and personality. The evil Dr. Claw was voiced by voice acting mega genius Frank Welker, whom has lent his voice to many TV shows and movies over the years, including Scooby-Doo, Ghostbusters, Transformers, Gremlins, and Spawn. And Gadget's trusty niece was voiced by Cree Summer, who also lent her voice to a long list of projects, including Tiny Toons, Rugrats, Batman Beyond, and X-Men Legends. And Don Adams would on-again, off-again voice the character all the way till 1999. Sadly though, the actor passed away in 2005. Number 8. Inspector Gadget borrows from several spy medias. As mentioned, Inspector Gadget shares the same voice as Maxwell Smart, with the two characters sounding exactly alike thanks to Don Adams, which will always connect Inspector Gadget with Get Smart. However, there are traces of other spy movies and spoof that have been threaded into the Inspector Gadget formula. Most notably is James Bond, as like Bond, Inspector Gadget is always assisted by gadgets, which goes without saying, along with Gadget's car, the Gadgetmobile, which looks a lot like the Lotus James Bond uses in The Spy Who Loved Me. And Dr. Claw is an obvious parody of the Bond villain Blofeld, as they are both the head of an evil organisation, and most of the time you can't see their faces, and they are accompanied by a pet cat. Inspector Gadget's look is heavily influenced by Peter Sellers' attire of Inspector Clouseau from the Pink Panther movies, who like Gadget is a kind-hearted yet absent-minded bumbling detective, who still somehow always seems to save the day despite his stupidity, with the world believing him to be the greatest detective. Each time Gadget is assigned a new mission by his long-suffering boss, Chief Quimby, the message always ends up self-destructing after Gadget reads the message, much to the dismay of Quimby, who always seems to suffer the blast. The exploding mission detail message is a gimmick that was introduced by the popular Mission Impossible spy series. So Inspector Gadget is like a mix and match of other spy shows and medias. However, it's a good thing that Gadget didn't have a moustache, or he may have looked a little bit too much like Inspector Clouseau. Which brings me to my next point. Number 7. Inspector Gadget's pilot was very different to the rest of the series. Often shows are very different to their original pilots, as when the pilots are picked up, changes are then made to the series in order to make it better or appealing to a wider audience. And Inspector Gadget's pilot is no exception, as the series pilot is considerably different to the rest of the series, thanks to Inspector Gadget himself, who in the pilot has a huge Super Mario Bros. Styled moustache, which just makes him look weird, as we are now used to Gadget not having one. Apparently the tash had to go due to MGM complaining that the facial hair made Inspector Gadget look too much like Inspector Clouseau, as mentioned. Then there is the issue of Inspector Gadget's voice, as in the pilot he sounds completely different. In the pilot the character was voiced by Jesse White, which then got overdubbed by Gary Oz, who gave the character a more deeper, more serious voice. Whereas Adams gave Gadget a deliberate comedic voice, originally his voice was more serious in tone, whilst the character was still being bumbling and getting stuff wrong. I guess that was part of the gag. Giving Gadget a different voice completely changes his personality and his motivation, and just doesn't make him the Gadget that we all know. Although his voice in the pilot is just fine, watching it really does make you appreciate the efforts of Don Adams. Number 6. The theme was inspired by classical music. One of the most memorable aspects of Inspector Gadget, that those who grew up watching it will no doubt remember the most, was its catchy as hell theme song. Inspector Gadget just had one of those jingles in which once it got inside your head, it wasn't going anywhere anytime soon. The theme was composed by Shuki Levy, whom with his business partner Ham Sorban scored a lot of children's TV shows, including He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, Mask, and Power Rangers. So if there is someone who knows a thing or two about putting music together for kids shows, it's this guy. However, if you actually listen to the jingle of Inspector Gadget, you may notice it sounds kind of familiar. This is because the tune that was used is based on the classical song In the Hall of the Mountain King, which was composed by Edvard Grieg in 1875. And once you notice this, you can really hear the classical song in the Inspector Gadget theme. Well, who would have thought that one of the most memorable themes to come out of the 1980s was inspired by some classical music that was made over 100 years earlier? Number 5. Creating Inspector Gadget was a worldwide effort. Inspector Gadget's production was an interesting one. As with most cartoons, in order to bring this enjoyable cartoon onto the small screen, it required a collaboration which extended around the globe. The initial original series of Inspector Gadget was designed, storyboarded, written, and voice recorded in Canada, namely the Nelvana Animation Studios in Canada, whilst a great chunk of the episodes were animated in Japan by Tokyo Movie Shinshira, a company that would go on to animate the popular hit movie Akira. And some episodes of Inspector Gadget were even animated in Taiwan by the company Cuckoo's Nest Studio, providing this otherwise simple cartoon with an effort that was made on a global scale. Number 4. Go-Go Gadget action figures. Back in the day, a fully functional, large-sized Inspector Gadget doll came out, complete with gadgets and accessories, including his Go-Go Gadget neck and limbs. For its time, this thing was freaking awesome, and everyone wanted one. However, Inspector Gadget surprisingly didn't get a full action figure lineup until the early 90s, long after the show's main heyday. There was a different gadget figure for each different function, along with different coloured jackets, which at the time I always thought was pretty cool. You could get other characters from the show, such as Penny, but what made this figurine lineup such a monumental event is that it also came with a Dr. Claw figure, whose face was covered up by the packaging, in which if you finally wanted to know what Dr. Claw looked like, you had to buy the figure. So what does Dr. Claw look like then? Well, he looks like Malcolm McDowell in his older post-A Clockwork Orange days. Hey, I'll take that over Rupert Everett any day. Number 3. Inspector Gadget met Mario. So as mentioned, animation company Deek produced both Inspector Gadget and the Super Mario Bros. Super Show, which also featured live-action segments involving the famous siblings, in which special guests would often turn up, with the likes of Dracula, Elvis, and, Winnie from the Wonder Years, of course. And in not one, but 2 occasions, Inspector Gadget turned up in live-action format, on the account that Deek owned both shows. Yep, long before the live-action movie starring Ferris Bueller as Inspector Gadget, Maurice LaMarche, who voiced Egon in the real Ghostbusters, turned up to the Mario Brothers plumbing business in need of repairs.
Yes, sir. I'll be there as soon as the Mario Brothers fix me up.
LaMarche sounded like Gadget just fine, but he just didn't exactly look like him though. Still, he was more believable than that movie starring Ferris Bueller as Inspector Gadget. Number 2. Inspiration came from 2 Hanna-Barbera characters. Inspector Gadget was produced by Deek CEO Andy Hayward, whom had previously worked for the legendary animation company Hanna-Barbera, where he got his true inspiration for Inspector Gadget from 2 characters that company had created. Those characters being Dino-Mutt, Dog Wonder, and Blue Falcon. Dino-Mutt originally had his own show before becoming a sidekick for Hanna-Barbera's bumbling superhero, the Blue Falcon. What inspired Hayward about Dino-Mutt was the fact that the dog was built in with a heap of robotic contraptions, including metallic, elongated robotic limbs, just like Inspector Gadget, whereas the Blue Falcon was something of a dim-witted buffoon, to which Hayward combined the 2 to create Inspector Gadget. I don't know. I think that having a dog that has been dissected and fitted with robotic parts is sadder than it is with a human. Number 1. Inspector Gadget's backstory. Although throughout the original series of Inspector Gadget we never find out exactly why Gadget is the way he is, eventually fans of the show finally got an explanation as to how the bumbling police officer became half robotic. And no, I'm not referring once again to that live-action movie either, as Gadget's background was already explained on an Inspector Gadget trading card. Now, if you're expecting to hear about Gadget's parents being murdered down a dark alley one night, you will no doubt be disappointed, as the trading card in question explains that Inspector Gadget's real name is John Brown, who was equipped with his robotic components after an accident, in which he fell down some stairs after slipping on a banana peel. Yeah, to hell with giving these gadgets to a trusty cop who gets the job done. Nah, let's give it to the cop who trips over a banana peel, of course. Well guys, that was my look into Inspector Gadget. I would say that he's a classic 1980s character, but truth be told, he's still going on today, in one format or another. So not only was Inspector Gadget created, but a legend was created as well. Be that a stumbling, bumbling one. And hopefully Inspector Gadget will continue to bring joy and entertain many more generations to come. Anyway, I'm Minty, and go Gadget, see ya!